Working on long projects is incredibly challenging. I think for me, on a personal note, there's only very few projects that I've worked on pretty consistently for long periods of times. One of which is obviously my teaching platform. Robot Pencil's been around as long as I've been around. I think that alias seriously was an alias I had even when I was trying to get jobs at real studios. When I was first approached by Sony Santa Monica, I had that alias then, and that was so long ago. So to me, working on super long projects, um, in terms of just like job wise, like the ones that I have done, I really do enjoy. But I find myself enjoying mostly projects where you're kind of in and out because I really like to create new and interesting content. It's just kind of the person I am. But the latest long project that I did was for myself again, which is this game project that I'm working on, Intergalactic Battle Roasters. Me and my buddy are still working on it. It's almost nothing like you've seen me do before. Um, but we've had these conversations. I told him, I'm not sure where this goes because ultimately it's either it could be a bust because maybe this person I just met, we're working on this project, they bounce out. Maybe it's a bust because I lose interest for whatever good reason. But we've been pretty consistently working with some good vibes this entire time. And today I don't really have much time. I have to do a lot of work. Um, for those of you who I know some of you who watch actually work with me, you guys have seen the work that I just did. So I typically have all their freelance gigs that I do. And then I also teach. So I have a class today. I had to actually move my class because I had to catch up on some other stuff to free up today. And honestly, after my class, I still have work. I got some other stuff that I need to kind of sort out. Oh no, I think my daughter's gonna come in here super loud while I'm recording. I know she's being loud elsewhere. Um, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about long projects in general, though. You know, um, so the projects where I've worked on for a few years for studios. Um, yeah, like the challenge that I find that happens with these longer projects is that the first part of the projects tends to be, in my mind, sometimes wasted effort. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not the best description, to be honest. I think there's a better way to describe this. I just don't have enough vocabulary. I don't have enough vernacular to be able to poetically explain what I think the feeling is. But it's not on purpose. People aren't trying to do this. And I think anyone who tries to fight against this um, natural occurrence or speaks against it, I think they misdiagnose it potentially. Usually, not all the time. And so, on a long project, why projects tend to take so long, including my personal project, it just takes forever to create content, man. Like it just takes so long. And the people who end up sitting with it and just are like, fucking, I'm gonna get this done, even if it sucks, tend to be the kind of people that'll ultimately get it done and it won't suck. There are absolutely lots of projects that were worked on with a large amount of love and care. Um, but when you don't have like that kind of rigid deadline or whatever, usually a project can just be long for the sake of being long. So really what I'm talking about is like long projects that ought to have been shorter, you know, because at the end of the day, when you look at the product, you think to yourself, why did it take so long? You know, um, for instance, a game like Ballatrode, that like poker card game. I think the developer worked on that game for nearly 4 years. Now you would look at the game and be like, wait, what in the world? You know? And I think this is why typically like a lot of people who don't know the space well, uh, just again, oversimplifying generalization here, like gamers, you know, me included, will have this kind of perception of like, the game is so easy, I can make a game like that, you know? And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair review of like that game's scope. And even the developer would argue that it isn't that complicated. But what is important to understand why projects take long, why long projects be long be long, is because of all of the stuff that happens to get to understand why the game ought to be simple or why the game is the way that it's going to be at the end of the day, you know? And I think, for instance, when you look at companies, like, again, this is again generalization. I don't want to, because I know some people who work in these industries, and that's why, unlike some of the probably the other YouTubers and other content creators that are maybe aren't in the trenches as much as some of the rest of us are, will have a lot of these prescriptions of what they think is the real problem. But once you're in the trenches, you start to realize, oh yeah, this is truly like nobody knows what they're doing. You know? Like this is a huge old mess. This is a big old mess. A big old mess up in here, you know? And so a lot of this kind of thought process I'm trying to walk through may sound like criticism, but I'm honestly more looking at it as like, this is just what I've observed, you know? And respect. And working on my own project has only doubled down my respect for this very process that takes us freaking forever to make something cool, you know? So anyway, so there, you would have companies that like, some studios out of China who will just copy pasta a successful project because obviously, copying and replicating other studios' success just makes a lot of sense. This is why when you see a winning formula genre, from like battle royales to MOBAs to the mobile game, like match three types of aesthetics, and whatever quote unquote game idea or story idea that comes out in the next month, you'll just see obviously copycats because this shit's hard, dude. It's incredibly hard. It is so hard to do. And some of the length of time has nothing to do with this idea of like, yeah, just get a planet and then after 2 years, we'll just get it done. Because of how many vectors can influence, and I'm speaking especially about video games, okay? The amount of variables that can influence a fucking video game and what makes it enjoyable is crazy. And some of the most reliable YouTubers that I find that talk about game dev absolutely respect this. They make almost no claim that as long as you do these steps, you'll absolutely nail it. They will say like, look, this is my best recommendation, but even still, homie, be prepared to be lost in the sauce. And that's great. No, usually those people, again, have actually made stuff and are now realizing, and the more stuff they make, the more they realize some of their earlier advice maybe even too specific, and they can become even more generalized. And they try to become a little bit more strategic with the wording. It's the same way that I teach. Like I try to use very deliberate wording and phrases to get people to understand that all you got to do is draw a shit ton and you'll get real good. And I really wanted to put like something here, like straight in the center. But it's starting to feel weird. Oh, maybe it's because I added this like weird pylon here. Yeah, let me just get out of here, pylon. What the fuck you doing? Ruining the composition, dude. So, bro, you put me there. What are you talking about? And then this super white obelisk feels out of place, but if I just say, you know what? No, it's not. I want this to be here. then then it will feel strong. And then it will feel that we're doing this intentionally. So anyway, and then maybe, oh, just maybe, that's the winning ticket. Now we can create some sort of being here. And this green palette, oh yeah, now this leg. Okay, so this it's just this whole, we'll just make this more like some sort of centipede creature. Because listen, nobody told me what I needed to draw here. I just started drawing some weird shit. So we'll just like lean into the fact that this is some sort of bug. Oh, side tangent, dude. Speaking of bugs, the other day I was just like on my in my kitchen cabinet, like on the door to like the dishes, there was just this cockroach infestation, roach infestation, just chilling on that door, and I was like, oh my god, dude, this is terrifying looking. It was just like a bunch of little roach babies. I was not digging it. Um, okay, back to back to the message. Um, so yeah, like making something so freaking hard, y'all. Like it just takes forever. And a lot of reasons why I think this is just because of the creative process. And I'm sure you've heard of this, but let me like walk you through kind of some of the examples of the creative process that kind of walks into production and why it's just so flippin' challenging. Okay. The first thing that like is very obvious to me when it comes to um, this type of stuff is just like how many people's opinions, you know, are in the room. When you have like a couple people, and this goes back to like why I think indie studios are going to just dominate in the coming future. Um, but when you have a lot of people's opinions, and you ought to respect their opinions, especially if they are making a strong case for them. Like I think that's totally reasonable to respect what people are saying and what they're trying to get across. But it can accidentally and indirectly create this like system of not really being able to categorically figure out what's wrong or what's fun or what's enjoyable, you know? Even if you have like a singular source of direction, like you have a game director who is a visionary and they worked on XYZ game, they would also admit that they had teams of people and maybe they just had the right cocktail and the right discipline and the right amount of ingredients at that time that really harness their ability to kind of direct a team like that. But when they get bigger teams, like whatever that harness power was available to them at that time, it's just different now. It's just a different environment, man. You know, completely different environment. Like for instance, like the folks who worked on Marvel Snap, like they were just like a ragtag group of people at Blizzard that made a Hearthstone, and even with Hearthstone's, you know, support with the larger Blizzard infrastructure, still took them quite a while. And even after they branched off to work on Marvel Snap, bro, they ran into like so many issues, and they just took longer and longer than I'm sure they even anticipated. But luckily, they had such a good amount of capital, and a lot of the key movers who were working on Hearthstone in the first place were, you know, kind of carried over. So it worked out. And I'm sure if they maintain that kind of strategy and kind of sharpen the blade with every new trading card game, especially if they stick in that genre, they will only sharpen those blades. You feel? And that's the power of kind of maintaining a long form team. This is what made I think it was Larian Studios who made Baldur's Gate. Like they've made that kind of game already a few times over, and they are working with the same people consistently. and they put money away in reserves. At least that's what they say they do. You know, I believe them because it's proof is in the pudding. But even when you have, let's say, everyone's opinions align, everyone likes the same kind of games using their Hearthstone and like Larian Studios, or even like Insomniac. Insomniac likes to keep making those types of games, or what have you. Even still, even still, homies, and it takes forever. Even Larian, I think they had to like release early access version of Baldur's Gate for a few years before they did the full release. Because this comes to like the second challenge that I don't think people respect nearly as much as they ought to, is testing your projects at scale. You know, like having a project at scale is like, just how do you do that unless you release it? Like, how do you determine what clearly passionate gamers or enthusiasts of your product could find in moments? You know what I mean? Like they love your game. They're gonna play the shit out of it. So they're gonna find all the problems with it. You know, that even with like a professional game tester team would have never found. You know, like there's a thing in science where it's like the known knowns. It's like stuff that we know, we've discovered, we understand. Then there's the known unknowns. There's things that we see and then we can observe. Like, let me just back up. Like the known, for instance, like something um, within our understanding, like that we know exists at some basic level, is like atoms, or like, you know, like light, gravity, like these types of things. We're pretty aware they exist. Okay, maybe we don't understand everything about them, but we know about them, and at least we give them a name, and we can reliably use them to do cool stuff. Then there's like the known unknowns, like for instance, using gravity yet again. Like we understood that gravity could it's a force, but we didn't know what kind of thing it was. Was it waves? You know, was it particle? Like, what the heck is it actually? And the recent discovery leads us to think that it's absolutely waves, which was Einstein's prediction. You know, as of now, I don't know. Time of watching this video, there's more information on it. But that's like one of those things. Like, but at the end of the day, like, what the fuck is gravity, dude? You know, like, what is it actually? And we know about the things that we don't know about, right? And then there's like the unknown unknowns, and this is just a claim that, in using the example of gravity yet again, like, says who? You know, like, we don't even know if our like original thought is in the right way to even think about it, to be honest, in the grand schemes of what we might discover in the future. You know, like, it might very well be something like gravity could be a fucking personality. You're like, what? How's that? No, it's like a physical attribute of their, like, no. Allegedly. I'm getting too weird, but you get what I'm saying. It's just like personality. It's like what I loved about Men in Black, when they pulled out like the marble, and then it's like there's a whole universe in there, and then it pulls out at the very end of the movie that we're like, basically our whole galaxy is like a game of marbles. I just love the premise of like our entire solar system and galaxy is just like a kid's toy, you know? And when I'm saying like, what if gravity's a personality? It's like, what if our entire existence in this universe is literally a synapse of a larger entity's brain, bro? You know, like a neuron. It's pretty cool stuff to write sci-fi movies, and that's I should do a whole video about that. How I believe more artists should stop being freaking out about AI taking over. We should just be making original content that inspires again. We need movies and ideas that are truly fascinating yet again, and really get us to think outside the box. Like I said in a previous video about my thoughts on AI, AI has only reinforced me to want to be more creative, not feel that my creativeness is being stolen. It very much is. I checked it the other day. About 150 of my images are being sourced on these AI models. But anyway, luckily me though, because I have thousands of images. They could be definitely robbing me blind, homie. Um, so I say all this is like in the creative space, like when you think about playtesting, it's like the same bullshit, man. Like there's the known knowns, like, okay, we know our game is a first person shooter. That's it, you know? And then there's like the known unknowns. It's like, okay, well, is this fun? Like we don't know if the players are going to enjoy these mechanics that we thought were going to be interesting and fascinating because we're trying to be innovative. We're trying to stand out just slightly, you know, et cetera, you know? And then there's the unknown. Then there are the things that developers didn't realize was a bad idea or a great idea until they put the games into the universe or their projects into the universe, you know? And this is typically kind of like the challenge that I have a lot of these times whenever I look at like people that think they have all the answers. It's just like it really is more like a science project where there's just so many things that goes into making something creative that is probably even more vast and complex than we give it credit to help us understand, you know? And I think that's why intuitively humans for generations have absolutely got it right to think that art is something else. It's something else going on here. You know? But there's something more to it. I think this is why I generally believe that the mass adoption of tools like AI tend to be still just superficial at best, even though it's genuinely impressive. But it reveals like, you know, like I think there was a trend. There was the Miyazaki one, which made me angry. Listen, I haven't seen one ever since that whole week. I'm sure there might still be people doing it, but it was superficial. And I think enough people found out, like on the grapevine, that yeah, maybe it's not the best thing. You know, enough content creators were like, "Yo, what the hell are we doing here?" You know. And most people are ethical and moral. At least I would like to believe this. And and then I think I saw another one where people were like turning themselves into toys. And I was annoyed by that one as well. I was like, oh my gosh. But then I was thinking like, oh, you know, maybe I'll make my own little toy thing. I was thinking about some stuff that I'll do that can just like subvert that expectation. Because that's the value that I could bring. I can go beyond whatever you type into a prompt, you know? And I had like all this fun ideas. But then that immediately stopped becoming a trend. It's funny because I even saw friends of mine posting their disdain, but I was like, it's already kind of gone, you know? Like people are like, oh, that's cool. But once people realize that anybody and everybody can just make it, I think it immediately loses its novelty, you know? And it's just not fun, you know? It's cool for that one moment, but it's just not nearly as fun as maybe like a dance trend. Because a dance trend, like, even if it's a trend, at the end of the trend, you've learned to dance. You've like moved your body. You did something creative and spiritual, you know? And so that's why that has more staying power than just randomly writing a paragraph about what you think your personality is and then letting some machine tell you what you might look like as a toy. That's literally as interesting as like, you know, putting an Instagram filter to make my images have a little bit more warm colors in it. And so to me, when it comes to like game development or creating your own projects, these long projects take long because that's what they're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out what like really catches people's attentions. And even when people do this, and I think they do it right, like there are some creators and there's some projects that I think are tremendously amazing, and they're some of the best things I've ever encountered. Like one of my favorite video games, my favorite indie games is Crawl, and it did really well during the boom in early 20 teens, I think it was. Um, it still like didn't shape the gaming industry as a whole. You know what I mean? Even a game like Among Us that eventually became incredibly powerful and popular was around for a while before people recognized its value. You know what I mean? And so whenever I tell people like long projects be long, I think that even when you do everything right, that's still part of the process. It's like the project's never really done. So, for those of you who are ever interested in making your own projects or working on something long term, consider this. That's part of the deal. If you are looking at some stuff and looking at short term gains, I think you will be disappointed more often than not. You know what I mean? I don't think that, I mean, I know for a fact that the norm here is that most people do not find these huge successes. Um, but what I do also see as a fact is that consistently the people who do end up ultimately finding the big successes also kept showing up. And I think that that is an attribute that if you are not spending lots of time and investment and you're afraid of these fears of like long-term investment and what that might lead, just know that that's just regardless, it seems like the standard, you know, whether you luck out and you become the person who makes that indie darling with your project, your story idea, you know, I was just thinking this morning, I was like, I was watching that Love, Death and Robots thing. And I was just thinking like, how could I become an animation director here? Because I would love to do that. And I was like, what can I do right now to kind of work my way towards that? Right now, I'm making my own game. That's like my biggest priority in terms of personal accomplishment. But I always still create stuff regardless. And I was just thinking, maybe I can make like uh, visual novels. Maybe I can do some. I had this really fun idea of like making a storybook. And maybe I should write this in YouTube poll, see what you guys think. Get kind of an audience impression, and maybe do it on Instagram too, see what people think. Um, but basically, create my own like storybook, similar to like fables, like grim tale fables type stuff, where it's just like several images telling one story versus like a large panel comic. I don't think that's just in my bones. I love comics, I love that kind of stuff, but I like short form storytelling very much in terms of what I like to engage with. You know, I don't really read novels, but I love like watching shorts. I like watching. Um, I used to do this thing where I'll listen to people tell short stories, like on YouTube. I still do that from time to time, like Lovecraftian style stuff. I think that's just maybe that's in my card more. That's something I could try to do as a first step to that, right? But I would recognize that this wouldn't happen in days. It would probably take me years to develop this skill and this appreciation and to see what sticks and what doesn't. Um, you know, and this will be just like my own personal journey of like what I want to do next with my art. You know, I've accomplished a lot of my goals in the entertainment sphere. I still work as an illustrator, concept artist, art director, and enjoy it deeply. But yeah, what else can I do? Like lots of incredible artists have those like, you know, eras of their ability to do stuff. And for me it's like, okay, maybe I should try this. Um because video games are going nowhere. I love video games forever and always. And um if I end up making video games for myself, I don't think I'll still stop making cool art and stuff. Just generally, like right now, what I'm doing. You know, I don't know if I will ever really stop doing that. And I don't think my business partner would encourage against it. I think he would support it, but then be like, all right, but let's work on this game, next game. I'll be like, all right, let's do it. You know? And so to me, it's really curious about this value. Maybe I should add it here too. Ooh, that might have been the winning ticket. Um, but yeah, that's to me is like kind of the biggest draw to some of the like short form storytelling stuff, because it's like I want to practice storytelling, and I've done a couple stuff already, and I shared it with some friends, and they were like, "This is pretty cool, actually." Um, but I would like to do like an anthology. I think that would be really fun. Like I do this a lot at work too. I come up with like pitches, and I help sell certain ideas, and I was like, maybe I should just start doing this and just start building IPs. But the heart of what I'm getting across is that even though it seems like a quote unquote well established like lineup, like I have artistic ability. I would just need to improve some of my written ability, but writing isn't as cumbersome as drawing and painting, like a full on illustrated graphic novel or something like that, or working on a large form game. Like this is something I could still do on my pastime. It's like kind of how I learned programming. I just would do it on my pastime. Um, because I want to explore that creatively. And I would respect, not that I will, I am respecting that lengthy challenge. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm gonna see what's up. I'm gonna write and see what you guys are feeling. And yeah, just I'm just curious too, actually, to be honest. I think generally speaking, yeah, anything that's just mostly illustrative and like passages of writing here and there, and you just turn the page, and there might be a little drawing or sketch on every page, but then there's a full illustration every other page. So like one story could have several to a dozen images telling that one large story, and then that's that one anthology, then moving on to the next one. Sounds like a lot of fun. That feels like I would be satisfying a lot of my own creative um, expectations. And I want to do the world building stuff, but I haven't had time to do that. I really haven't. So anyway, it could be fun to just do that instead, but we'll see. I still got a lot of work to do, work, and I think in the next month or two, I shall be more open to less work. And so we shall see. These are famous last words. I'm always so busy, but yeah. Anyway, my advice though to most of you guys. Sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there. I was just like literally thinking out loud. My advice for most of you guys, if you ever want to journey and explore these types of longer and more interesting challenges for yourself and what you want to try to accomplish for whatever might be fascinating and empowering for your journey, just know that regardless of how successful you might become at first or later, it just seems pretty consistent that long-term goals, or sorry, long efforts and long-term goals is typically the norm. Like people that tend to stay on the marathon tend to stick the landing. It's just been pretty consistently seen from my perspective. And I would be lying if I didn't say that to y'all. But anyway, I also like music. So maybe getting back to guitar playing, like good old folk guitar, and maybe play my own music and putting some, just sticking to YouTube and just make a little YouTube story and just fucking show it to you guys. Like a minute long song, just me singing about a fable and then just showing images. That could be fun. That could really wrap it up in a nice little bow. Yeah, that sounds awesome too. Anyway, I want to do one more thing before I call it, y'all. We got to add a bit more Whoops. A bit more depth. Oh, I did a bit of a switcheroo for you guys too. You guys might be like so confused when you look at the thumbnail. Like what might have made you click the thumbnail, but then you're like, wait, this whole painting was green this whole time? Just to prove yet again, color is a lie. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it, folks. Color is an absolute trap. It is all about the values. Get those values in check, friends. All right, anyway. Longer video for long discussions. All right, I got to get out of here, though. Topic down, quota met. Like and subscribe. Please comment. I respond pretty much within the first 24 to 40 hours. I spend about half an hour in my morning reading and writing to all the comments, especially as it's still not that many. If once I start to get into the thousands of comments, I'm sure I will at some point in the future, far future. Yeah, it's probably just going to be the first batch of comments that I see. I have no idea how I'm going to navigate that. I'm not even thinking about it. See you guys later. Watching the next video.